Hey folks, these are the two creeks that we will be going in on day one. As you can see that I have loaded up the Google Earth Pro to show you the locations of these two creeks that we will be going through and pre-fishing. Area one will be the creek that we will start out into, and you'll see the footage and how I adapt to the structure outlined in that creek based on the map study, and then we will transition to area 2 and do the same. Here is a blown up view of area 1 that we will be starting our pre-fish. On this aerial photo, I have outlined with the arrows 1, 2, and 3 are the areas that I caught fish. On arrow number 1 is coming up on a buckbush that's on the inside turn of the creek channel. Number 2 is also an outside turn of the creek channel next to the buckbushes. And arrow number 3 is where I had a hit but did not catch the fish, which is a good thing because I wanted to know that they're back there in this creek, and catching them prior to the tournament would quite eliminate my odds of catching that fish during the tournament. And on this image is the historical image that I've shown in part one, how to get that. You see the yellow arrow in the top of the screen here is where the icon is in Google Pro Earth to be able to select the drawn down picture. And as you can see, the arrows there that I outlined in the previous image, 1, 2, and 3. And you can see the buckbush is on the inside turn of that creek channel. Arrow number 2, you can see the outside bend of the creek channel. You can see a little irregular indent in there, probably due to erosion, and a bass can hide in there outside of that current and ambush fish or bait fish as it comes by. And then the top red arrow there, that's where I missed the fish, but it's along that creek channel on that inside edge there. All right, folks, here we are in area 1. And as I go inside this creek, I'm towards the rear of it. And as soon as I get around these buck bushes here on the right side, I'll be coming up on the buck bush out there in the center or on the inside turn of the creek channel. As you can see, the bottom left arrow in the picture-in-picture. And I threw at it once on the left side, and then I threw back in on the right side of the buckbush. And as you can see, I got a hit there, and I immediately threw back in there to see if I can get that fish. And as you can see, that throwing back in there, I did get that fish. Not a very big fish, but I believe that's the fish that hit me on the previous cast. So that you can see that prime area with that buckbush sitting on the inside turn of that creek channel as it comes into shallow water where I'm sitting at in the boat. And then as I cast back in there to see it again, if there's another one sitting on that buckbush there, or being able to draw fish out of that creek channel, then I turn and I'm going to throw on the outside bend of that creek channel that's right in front of me. And that creek channel goes from right to left as it goes across the front of the boat there. See if I can hit that outside turn in that creek channel, see if anything is holding up in there. And then as you can see that, let me pause for a minute. As you can see that fish came off that buckbush to my right, that's kind of out of the picture, or that little indentation there on the creek channel. I believe I was more in the indentation as I drifted up over top of the creek channel, and I believe that's why that fish hit so close to the boat, or he could have been following it. And then I turn around and check the backside of the buckbush. That's to my right, or to the right of the picture here. As you can note, that since I'm in shallow water, that I'm using my trolling motor very little and maintaining boat control. Want to eliminate as much noise disturbance in the water since it is shallow water. And here I'm only using the trolling motor to position myself for my next cast, which is right there up the inside edge of the creek channel. And that is the third arrow in my map study that I have shown here. And as I'm fishing it, I get a bump there. It's a good thing not catching them, trying to catch fish in a tournament, and you've caught them previously, a week before or a few days before the tournament. Typically that fish isn't going to hit, but it gives me the indication that the fish are in the back here. As you can see, that within 5 to 7 casts, I had quite possibly had a hookup rate of 3 fish that would have been in the box, going to the weigh-in scale, and have the opportunity to call them throughout the day as I go. Here we go into area 2 in the top right hand corner there. And this is an overview, zoomed in view of that area 2. And you can see the arrows number 1 and number 2 where I caught fish in this creek. And this next image, you can see the drawdown map, and you can see the creek channel and how it runs in the back of this creek in area 2. And of course, indicated with the red arrows are fish 1 at the top and fish 2 down at the bottom. And both of these fish were caught on the creek channel, as you can see in the illustration. Alright, sorry folks for the camera footage here. We got rain for about 45 minutes, had to get into rain suits and change shoes and everything else, and waited it out, and here we are in area 2. And as you can see, I'm coming up on the inside corner there on that buckbush right out in front of me, and pull a fish off of there. That would be fish number 1 there. But as you can see, that in area 2 they're still on the buckbushes as well as area 1. Huh? As you can see, we're still in area 2, and this is where I caught the second fish, which is illustrated there in the bottom arrow in the picture-in-picture. Where you hiding, little fella?
He's seen how far he could jump.
What?
He's seen how far he could jump. It's flat for him.
Yeah, he thought he was free. He thought he was free. Hey folks, on day two, we're going to move out to my mid-creek channels that I like to call my mid-creek, in the range of, say, 5 to 10 foot range, and go check that pattern out to see if they're out on the mid-creek channels. Here's an overview of the mid-creek that we will be going into, and as you can see that the red arrows where I caught fish. And here's a picture of the drawdown based on this creek.
There you go. You wanted that bad boy.
Even though I missed that fish, we are pre-fishing and hooking a fish in pre-fish and then trying to get that fish to bite in a couple days, or even a week. He'll probably move off and go somewhere else or whatever. But it's almost a good thing. But it lets me know that they are at my mid creek range. Here we are in the back of the same creek. The reason why I came back in here because of the depth range that I'm trying to fish or maintain, that 5 to 10. By coming back here and swinging on the opposite bank, I wanted to throw into some of the wood cover that I noticed on that bank coming in, and also the shade cover that these trees provide to see if the fish were going to move up a little bit shallower in that main creek on the bank because of the shade. Once I got out towards the mouth of this creek, I switched up a bait, 4-inch worm, to see if I can get them on a little deeper ledge there to give them another choice of bait. In day 3, we're going to be doing some offshore structure fishing on ledges in about 14 foot of water. Here's an overview where we will be doing our offshore structure fishing. As you can see with the red arrows, the bottom left is where I caught my first fish, and the top arrow I had a break off of a big fish. And here is the illustration of the drawdown of this area. At this point, I am trying to line up with the creek ledge or off structure ledge that we will be fishing, and it'll be around 14 foot of water. So as I move up and get the proper angle so that I can cast down the ledge going into the back of the creek. As you can see, I've made my cast down that ledge, and in the illustration, it'll be the bottom left arrow where I caught my first fish. Here's some bonus footage after I went back a couple weeks later and checked the shallow water buckbush pattern, since it worked well on day 1. Here's an overview of the area we fished 2 weeks later in the buckbushes. Here's an overhead view of where I caught the fish in the buckbushes, see by the arrow number 1 and number 2. And here's the drawdown map of that area, and you can see the locations. As I move into this creek, I noticed that the water conditions were the same as day 1 when we were in the buckbushes.
There you go.
Little chunk. Almost got away again. Golly. I can't. I'm like, are you kidding? A little ginger, off color water a little bit too. There you go. Good one. Look at this old chump. Look at this old chump. Daddy, you on your butts. This old chump. Hey, look at him, he's feeding up, boy. He got a little belly on him. Nice little chunky, clean fish. There you go, baby. Oh, freaking daddy. Daddy, you're sticking him on these buck bushes.
I want to thank you for watching. I hope part 1 and part 2 helps you in your fishing and to become a better fisherman. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.